What up, y'all? It's T-Tar, and today we're going to be solving the missing mythical in Scarlet and Violet. This is the final mythical Pokemon that's yet to come out and is nowhere in the code of the games. It was first hinted by Ku saying that there's an M-related Pokemon that's yet to be revealed, probably movie-related. And over the last few videos, I've been giving small hints towards what this Pokemon can be, starting with the logo, right? How there are 4 sparkles on the logo, blues represented by Tropius, magenta and green by Ogerpon, and then a yellow. And then in another video, we talked about how the yellow is the second biggest sparkle, even bigger than Peachron and Ogerpon. And I was hinting that maybe there's something bigger that this Pokemon has to do with Area Zero. I've been asking y'all what y'all thought this Pokemon could be, what it could represent, and we came to some cool theories like this gorilla Pokemon that was drawn in Heat's book and matches with no known Pokemon of the over 1,000 we have. The closest is Slaking, who is in Paldea, but that's not the back of Slaking. This is some unknown creature that Heath drew, and it kind of works as an ominous hint if that is the new mythical Pokemon and it was left discreetly where people wouldn't pay attention to right in the middle of Scarlet and Violet's game. But in this video, I'm going to give y'all what I think this new Pokemon is going to be. And the moment we started talking about how this Pokemon is yellow and we were uncovering the sparkle hint, something kind of hit my head, but I couldn't figure out what it was. So I started to go through a bunch of the Japanese tales, because as y'all know, the many Pokemon that Scarlet and Violet are based off are Japanese tales. First we got, of course, the Momotaro story. The story of Momotaro. He sets out, befriends the dog, the bird, and the monkey, and he beats up the ogre. The reverse of this story, in a sense, is what Ogerpon's story is and what Peachron's story is. So that's one of the Japanese tales. There's another Japanese tale called Uranoshimako, which is this fisherman who like helps a turtle, and the turtle turns out to be this time-traveling turtle that screws his life over. That's what Tropius is based off. Even though Tropius seems pretty harmless, both of these are based off Japanese tales. So I was reading through a bunch of different Japanese tales to figure out if anything lined up with this other mythical Pokemon, and then I realized a certain tale that I found a while back when I was researching that time-traveling story. You see, the real title to that time-traveling story, Uranoshimako, is, well, not the real title, but a more modern title to it is Urashimataro. So we have Momotaro and Urashimataro. And while the name Taro is a common Japanese name, and it's actually in a lot of Japanese stories, there's a third story that Taro is used that's quite popular in. Urashimataro, Momotaro, and Kintaro is the third one. And Kintaro means gold boy. And Ura, Momo, and Kin are used as like a trio often. That one ninja show used it as a trio. And if you look online, they're often paired together like this. Kintaro, Urashimataro, and Momotaro. Often they are considered a trio story. And if the Teal mask and the Indigo disc touched on the first 2 Taro stories, and we have a missing Pokemon, this kind of works out as the perfect opportunity to tell the Kintaro story through this Pokemon. And I don't know if I told y'all that, but what Kintaro translates to is like a golden boy, which is what yellow looks like. If you look at that sparkle, it's like that yellow sparkle is representing the third story, Kintaro. So the story of Kintaro, unlike Momotaro, which is a story of conquering the demons, and then Urashimataro, which is just a whole tragedy, the Kintaro story, I'm gonna tell it to y'all, it's actually a simple and bright story. To look at the sparkles again, Ogerpon and Peachron probably shared a similar size, if we're reading into it correctly, because they're sharing one story, the Momotaro story, while Tropius has its own story, and Kintaro here might have his own story as well. So I'm going to tell y'all the story, and there's many iterations to this, but we're going to try to draw the conclusion of what this yellow mythical Pokemon could be after hearing the story. So it's pretty much about a young boy called Kintaro. He is extremely strong, but not so overpoweredly strong that it breaks the story. He's just a really strong kid, and he lives with his mother on this mountain called Mount Ashigara. And this boy is pretty much befriended all the animals on this mountain, and he lives a very peaceful life being their friends. He can wrestle a bear and win, he can outrun rabbits, and he like once jumped into a pool and outswam this giant fish. And all of these, if you look online, you'll find like plushies too. You'll find him like wrestling a bear or with a koi fish in his hand, and he's often depicted carrying an axe, though this doesn't come till later in his life. That's pretty much all there is to Kintaro's story. He's kind of like a Goku, but Goku's based off Sun Wukong. It's not the same thing. But the story is just that he's very friendly, he's one with nature, he's strong, and he's kind-hearted, and he's brave, okay? All of those. But pretty much while he's hanging out with these animals, one day, this heroic samurai is coming through where he lives. And he's with his 3 men that work under him, his top men. And pretty much as they're strolling by, they see Kintaro just casually wrestling a bear. And remember, Kintaro just lives in the outskirts on this mountain, so people don't really come by here. And here's the thing, he's depicted as a tiny child in some iterations. Like, look at this. Look how freaking tiny he looks. But then also he's depicted as more feral and big like this. It really depends on which story you read. But he sees Kintaro here wrestling a bear, and he thinks to himself, how the hell is he doing this? And he approaches him, and then he has his 3 men fight Kintaro just childishly to see if Kintaro can overpower his men. And Kintaro, he realistically overpowers them, not in like a Goku way, but he struggles, but he successfully is stronger than a samurai's top 3 men who are fully grown, and he's just a little boy. So the samurai asks Kintaro, can you join me? You know, we're fighting demons and all this crap. I could really use your strength back at my army. And essentially, Kintaro ends up joining him. That's the story. That's the whole story. That's all that happens. And pretty much, Kintaro becomes like the leader of those 3 samurai below. So it creates a quartet of the 4 retainers under that master samurai. And Kintaro is one of them. But secretly, he's like the strongest one. It's around this time that he gets his axe, and this is what he's known for if you look up pictures of him. He kind of looks like Dora with an axe. That's Kintaro. Also, what you'll see if you look at him online is he has the Japanese letter for gold written on his chest, which we could play around with and say, if it is the gorilla that Kintaro is, that maybe when he turns around, he also has the kanji for gold on his chest. But that's the story of Kintaro. So what this story really represents, since there's no sad ending or anything to it, is just like a story that represents bravery, being kind, being one with nature. And there's something called Boys' Day in Japan on May 5th. And on this day, they put up dolls of Kintaro as a symbol of hoping the boys will grow courageous and strong, just like him. And so here's my theory, right? I think 2 things. 1, that gorilla Pokemon is the final mythical, and that is Kintaro. And it's because I went through so many versions of this story, and they kept falling in one of 2 categories. In some iterations, he's shown as a child that's like 4 years old, and in some iterations, he has this feral appearance. And I think the ones where he's depicted as a child are for children. It's a simplified version, and these are the same versions of the stories where Kintaro lives on the mountain with his mother. But as you go to the more darker side of the stories where he gets this appearance, I've noticed that this is when you start to get to he lives with the mountain witch. And in some stories, he doesn't have anyone he lives with, no mother or anything. He lives just with the animals and is an orphan. And that's why he has this look. And remember what I was saying before, how the kid version sounds a lot like Sun Wukong? That's probably wrong. And his feral appearance probably goes hand in hand with his monster strength. And so I think this image where the samurai is approaching him and he has this very chunky look is the true depiction of what Kintaro is. And as you would notice, he's hairy, and it looks a lot like, if you go back to the Heat photo, that what Heat captured was the backside of that very hairy Pokemon that is Kintaro, the golden child. I don't want to be wrong about this. I really want this to be the golden child. So here's my prediction for what's going to happen with Kintaro, right? The movie that comes out is not going to be our typical movie. Well, it'd be nice if Ash came back, but like involving Ash or involving Liko, the new protagonist, it's going to be its own self-contained story that's going to be consistent with the video games. I don't know if Pokemon is ready to do this, but pretty much what they can do is tell a story that technically happens within the continuity of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet about this 3rd mythical Pokemon, but it would be movie exclusive. It would not be an event you get to experience in your game, but it would be something that technically happened within the games. So Kintaro's role would be slightly bigger than what Ogerpon and Peachruns were, and maybe it has some purpose in Area Zero. Maybe it's known as the Guardian of Area Zero. You know, they had to mess with the Momotaro story a bit to flip it on its head, so maybe what they do is turn this happy tale of Kintaro into some kind of tragedy, where instead of joining up with the samurai, this Kintaro Pokemon fell into Area Zero and has been trapped here all along, for hundreds of years, which is why Heath saw it long ago, and instead it became like a guardian for all the Pokemon here. And so maybe, even though we know the guardian is probably Terupagus that Heath writes about, that watches over the treasures, maybe instead the guardian is actually this Kintaro Pokemon, and he tries to keep all the Pokemon in Area Zero safe. Maybe while the Pokemon is based off Kintaro, it doesn't follow the same story. But yeah, I think after you watch this movie, you're gonna be able to download the event to your game. And if Game Freak wants to, they might add a story where you get to experience something in game, but it makes more sense that it's gonna be a very simple event to our game, but the actual movie that plays out is gonna be real. But yeah, that's the video I wanted to make. I think this is what this mythical Pokemon would be. And so even though we're out of Scarlet and Violet content, there is something big in store for us. I'm hoping. This is just a theory at the end of the day. I hope y'all enjoyed. Make sure y'all shank that like button and let me know your thoughts in the comments. There's just around 3 weeks until Pokemon Day. And I do want to tell y'all this. When Zarude was revealed on Pokemon Day in 2020, he was first teased on February 15th as a silhouette. So any minute now, potentially, we could get like a silhouette for this Pokemon. And then we could start to study its details and figure out if there's any hints of Kintaro in it. But at the end of the day, it's just a theory. Of course, I got more to talk about and I'm interested in y'all's theories. So I'll see y'all either later today or tomorrow. Take care.